What if your lifelong climb isn't about success, but a forgotten ritual written in the stars? What if Nostradamus saw Capricorn not as a worker, but as a spiritual gatekeeper of ancient power? And what if the next celestial alignment isn't just cosmic, but the moment your real power is activated? Capricorn, what I'm about to share with you could change the way you see your destiny forever. Capricorn, you've always been known as the climber, the one who keeps going no matter how steep the mountain. People admire your drive, your focus, your ability to make things happen. But let me ask you this. What if that mountain wasn't just a metaphor for success, but a symbol of something spiritual? Maybe it's not about reaching the top at all. Maybe it's about who you become on the way up. That's the real lesson. That's the power you've been carrying all along. Now let's talk about something that'll give you chills, because this goes way back. Nostradamus, yeah, the prophet with all those cryptic quatrains, had something to say about you, Capricorn. He didn't just see war or kings. He saw you. In one of his verses, he speaks of a lone goat standing atop the world, unaware of the fire rising beneath. Sounds intense, right? But here's the deal. It's not about fear. It's a warning. If you chase power without purpose, that fire, it burns you from the inside. But with intention, it ignites something divine. Capricorn, let's be real for a second. Your strength, it's unmatched. You've got this laser focus, this ability to shut out the noise and make things happen. But here's the shadow side no one talks about. That same focus, it can trap you. When your need for control gets too tight, you start to lose the magic. You stop listening to your gut. You trade power for pressure. That's the dark gift Nostradamus warned about. A gift that turns into a cage if it's not used with intention. And you're me. Here's where it gets wild. Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, is coming back to Capricorn. And not just for a quick visit. This is a once-in-a-lifetime cosmic moment. Pluto hasn't been here since 2008, and after 2025, it won't return for another 248 years. That's not just rare, it's sacred. They say Pluto doesn't knock, it breaks the door down. So what does this mean for you? Transformation, not surface-level stuff. Deep, soul-level change, the kind that shakes foundations, the kind that forces you to let go of who you thought you had to be, so you can step into who you truly are. Capricorn, this is your portal. Nostradamus hinted at moments like these. When the stone cracks, the fire rises. Or as one hidden verse suggested, the silent stone shall speak when the fire returns to its place of origin. He wasn't talking about buildings. He was talking about people, strong ones, like you. And when Pluto returns, it brings buried truths to the surface. Old wounds, old fears, things you've shoved down for years because you didn't have time to deal with them. Imagine you're in a meeting, surrounded by people, nodding, contributing, looking composed. But inside, you feel detached, like you're living someone else's life. That quiet ache isn't burnout. It's your soul whispering, there's more than this. But now, you can't ignore it. You'll feel it in your career, your identity, your reputation. Everything you built might feel like it's being tested. And it is. But not to break you, to rebuild you, stronger, wiser, aligned with your soul, not just your schedule. And if you lean in, if you trust the process, this portal becomes power, real power, not control, but clarity. No pressure, but purpose. It's your moment to rise, not just in the world's eyes, but in your own. Capricorn, Pluto's not here to scare you. It's here to strip away what's false so what's real can finally breathe. Are you ready to walk through that door? Think about the version of you from 2008. What were you chasing back then? What were you afraid of? Pluto's return is a cosmic checkpoint, asking you to review that cycle and decide what stays and what finally needs to go. This isn't about throwing everything away. It's about refining, purifying, stripping back the noise until only the truth remains. You might feel overwhelmed, emotional, even lost. But that's not failure. It's part of the clearing. Sometimes you've got to break down to break through. Some Capricorns will resist it, cling to control, to status, to what looks good on paper. But those who surrender, they become something more, something unshakable. This is where your legacy shifts. Not the legacy people read in headlines, but the one your soul carries forward. The legacy of truth, of alignment, of finally listening to the voice inside you that says, this is who I really am. So take a breath. Look at your life. What needs to go? What's weighing you down? And more importantly, who could you become without it? Sometimes we hold on to things because they feel safe, even if they're no longer right for us. Let's talk about something most people don't know. Even many Capricorns haven't heard this part. There's a forgotten ritual, something ancient, something whispered about in esoteric circles and hidden texts, what some call the Forbidden Mountain Ritual. And here's the wild part. It's connected to you. Legend says that every few generations, a Capricorn is called, not just to climb the mountain, but to perform a sacred rite at its peak. Not a literal mountain, of course. This is symbolic. It's the moment you reach the top of what you thought mattered and realize there's something more, something deeper. Nostradamus hinted at this in one of his more cryptic quatrains. He spoke of a figure standing on stone beneath a burning sky, with hands lifted toward the heavens and the earth trembling below. Another passage reads, "When the soul remembers, the world begins to shift." Sounds dramatic, right? But think about it. That's the exact moment when Capricorn stops climbing for validation and starts leading from inner truth. So what is this ritual really? It's not a single ceremony. It's a process, a transformation, a turning inward. First, the release. This is where you let go of roles, of identities, of the pressure to be the strong one all the time. You sit with the question, who am I without the title, the success, the armor? Then comes the fire. Some Capricorns experience this as a breakdown, a health crisis, a career fall, a relationship ending. But it's not the end. It's the initiation, the moment the old self burns so the true self can rise. And finally, the reclaiming. This is where you return, not as the same person, but as someone who remembers who they were before the world told them who to be. Your power is no longer about control. It's about clarity. You stop forcing and start flowing. You lead not from fear, but from deep, grounded truth. Here's what this might look like in real life. You've been chasing a goal for years. Maybe it's status, maybe it's stability. You get there, and instead of feeling joy, you feel empty. That's your signal. That's the mountain whispering, there's more. And if you're brave enough to listen, you'll feel the pull to turn inward, to go deeper. That's where the ritual begins. Picture this. You finally hit a milestone you've worked toward for years, but instead of joy, there's silence, a strange emptiness. That's not failure, it's initiation. The ritual is beginning to call you home. This whole process, it's not linear, it's messy, it's emotional, but it's real. And every Capricorn who walks through it becomes something rare. Someone who can hold space for others, guide from experience, and lead with authenticity. The Forbidden Mountain Ritual isn't forbidden because it's dangerous. It's forbidden because most people never dare to face it. But you, Capricorn, you were built for this. So if you're standing on that inner summit right now, if everything in your life feels like it's crumbling just as you thought you'd made it, don't panic. You're not falling apart. You're activating the ritual, and when it's complete, you won't just climb mountains. You'll become one. Now, that's power. And here's the truth. No title, no achievement, no praise will ever match the peace that comes from standing in your soul's truth. Let's get into something real. Something a lot of Capricorns are feeling but might not fully understand. Awakening doesn't always come with lightning bolts and fireworks. Sometimes it's subtle, quiet, unsettling. And if you're paying attention, the signs are already showing up in your life. So here are 5 signs you're in the middle of a spiritual awakening and that the mountain you've been climbing is shifting beneath your feet. Sign 1. You feel restless, even when things are fine. You've got the job, the routine, maybe even the respect. But something feels off, like you're going through the motions, checking the boxes, but your soul isn't on board anymore. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone at night. Everything looks fine in your life, but there's a dull ache in your chest, a whisper you can't ignore anymore. That inner spark, it's flickering, asking questions like, is this all there is? That's not boredom, it's your spirit nudging you toward more. Sign 2. You start questioning everything you once believed, values you were raised with. They don't land the same. Career goals you chased for years suddenly feel hollow. You may even start to feel like a stranger in your own life. This can be scary, but it's also necessary. It means your soul is expanding beyond the box it's been living in. Sign 3. You're pulled toward solitude, not because you hate people, but because you need space to hear your own thoughts. You might cancel plans, unplug from social media, or just spend more time in nature. It's not isolation, it's recalibration. Capricorn, you're learning to reconnect with your own frequency without outside noise. Sign 4. Emotions hit harder than usual. You cry easier, feel things deeper. You're more sensitive to energy, to injustice, to beauty, to pain. That's not a weakness. That's a sign your heart is cracking open. Remember, the path to true strength always leads through vulnerability. Sign 5. You sense something bigger is calling you. You can't explain it, but you feel it, a pull, a knowing, like your life is part of something more, but you haven't quite figured out what yet. Maybe it shows up in dreams or in moments of silence. That feeling, that's your soul preparing you for a shift. You're not imagining it, you're tuning in. And here's the wild thing. These signs don't always show up in order. Sometimes they overlap. Sometimes they cycle. But if even one of these sounds familiar, you're already in it. Capricorn awakening isn't a one-time event. It's a series of gentle and not so gentle nudges from the universe, pulling you back to your truth. It's messy, it's emotional, and yes, it can feel like everything's falling apart. But here's the reframe. Maybe things aren't falling apart. Maybe they're falling into place. So if you've been feeling off, if you've been questioning your path, if you've been craving something deeper, this is your confirmation. You're not broken, you're becoming. And the more you surrender to the process, the more you'll see that this isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your real one. And trust me, what's waiting for you on the other side is more powerful than anything you've built so far. Let's talk about the shift that changes everything. When Capricorn stops trying to control and starts creating. You've probably been the responsible one your whole life, the fixer, the planner, the one everyone else leans on. And honestly, you're amazing at it. You make things happen, you build, you lead. But deep down, there's a question you've been too busy to ask. What if control isn't the goal? Because here's the truth. Control is exhausting. It keeps you in a loop of constant vigilance, constantly trying to make sure nothing falls apart. And yeah, it works. For a while. Until it doesn't. Until you realize you're running your life like a project, checking boxes, managing outcomes, but forgetting to feel, forgetting to live. This is where the shift begins. Capricorn, you're not here just to manage the world. You're here to shape it. Not by force, but by vision. When you release the grip of needing everything to be just right, you make space for something bigger. Creativity, flow, magic. You become a creator. Now don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean abandoning your strengths. You'll always be grounded. You'll always value structure. But instead of using those traits to stay in control, you use them to bring ideas to life, to build things that matter. Not because they're impressive, but because they're aligned with your soul. You stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "What wants to come through me?" That's when the magic kicks in. You might find yourself drawn to new passions: writing, designing, teaching, mentoring, creating something that didn't exist before you touched it. This is your soul stretching out, wanting to play, to explore, to build something from truth instead of fear. And here's the best part. You inspire others without even trying. When people see you moving from alignment instead of pressure, they feel it. Your presence becomes permission. You're not just a leader, you're a guide. Think of the archetype of the healer builder, someone who doesn't just create for success, but for healing, for meaning, for legacy. That's the new Capricorn. That's the path opening before you now. So ask yourself, where in my life am I still clinging to control? What would happen if I loosened the grip just a little? What if I trusted myself enough to let the universe co-create with me? You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to say yes to the shift. Because once you do, you stop chasing power and you start becoming it. And Capricorn, once you start creating from that place, there's no going back. Only forward, only deeper. Let's bring it down to earth for a moment. You've gone through the awakening, the release, the realization. Now what? How do you hold on to this energy and not slip back into the old patterns? Capricorn, this is where the real work begins. Not the grind you're used to, but the sacred kind. Quiet, intentional, daily. These aren't chores. They're anchors, rituals that keep your spirit steady as you step into your power. So here are a few daily practices to help you stay grounded and aligned. First, morning silence. Not scrolling, not emails. Just 5 minutes of stillness. Before the world asks anything of you, give yourself space to just be. Sit by a window. Breathe. Let your thoughts settle. It might feel awkward at first, but over time, you'll notice how much clarity it brings. That silence, it's where your soul speaks. Second, journaling. And no, it doesn't have to be poetic or perfect, just honest. Write what you're feeling, what you're noticing, what you're afraid of. Ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding today? It's not about solving, it's about seeing. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. Third, earth connection. Capricorn is an earth sign for a reason. You recharge when you touch the ground, so take walks, touch a tree, sit on the grass. Let the natural world remind you that you're not separate from it, you're part of it. Even 5 minutes outside can reset your entire energy field. Fourth, sacred yes and powerful no. Every day, choose one thing to say yes to that feeds your soul, and one thing to say no to that drains it. This is how you reclaim your power, not in huge life decisions, but in the small daily boundaries that shape your reality. Fifth, creative release. You don't have to be an artist, but create something, anything. Cook a new meal, doodle in a notebook, dance in your room. Creation moves energy. It's how you process what your body and mind can't put into words. And finally, end the day with gratitude. Not a checklist, but a pause. Ask yourself, what moved me today? Maybe it was a smile from a stranger, a breakthrough thought, or the way the sky looked at sunset. This soft moment at the end of your day reminds you that beauty is always here, even in the chaos. Capricorn, these practices aren't about being productive. They're about being present. You've spent so long proving your worth, now it's time to remember it. These simple rituals become sacred when done with intention. They build trust, not just with the universe, but with yourself. You're not just building a better routine. You're building a foundation for the new you, the one who doesn't just climb, but lives, breathes, creates, and loves from a place of alignment. Start small, stay consistent, and watch how everything shifts. Try this. 3-minute soul reset for Capricorns. 1. Sit still with your feet touching the earth. 2. Place one hand on your heart, one on your solar plexus. 3. Whisper, I release the climb, I reclaim the truth. It may seem simple, but when done with intention, it realigns everything. Because the truth is, when you honor yourself daily, you invite the universe to honor you back. Let's talk about something that hits close to home for almost every Capricorn: perfection. You've been conditioned to strive for it, to be the best, to hold it all together, to make sure no one sees the cracks. And you've done it well. You've built a life that looks solid on the outside, but on the inside, maybe you're tired. Maybe you're wondering if all this effort is really worth it. Here's the truth. Perfection is an illusion, and worse, it's a trap. One that keeps you stuck in cycles of self-doubt, overthinking, and burnout. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be real. Capricorn, what if the cracks aren't flaws, but doorways? What if the things you've been hiding, your uncertainty, your emotions, your messiness, are actually where your true strength lives? Because the truth is, people don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your humanity. And when you finally give yourself permission to be human, you give others that same freedom. Think about a time you opened up, even just a little. Maybe you told a friend you were struggling. Maybe you admitted you didn't have all the answers. What happened? Chances are you felt relief. Connection, like a weight had been lifted. That's the magic of dropping the mask. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to your parents, not to your boss, not to your younger self. You've already climbed so far. Now it's time to stop striving and start softening. Softening isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It means you've learned that effort without ease isn't sustainable, that pushing without pausing only leads to exhaustion, that constantly trying to fix yourself means you've forgotten you're already whole. Here's a practice. Next time you mess up, instead of beating yourself up, say this: I'm still learning, and that's okay. Notice how different that feels? That's grace. And Capricorn, you deserve grace just as much as you give it to others. Another practice: let someone see you as you are, not as the achiever, not as the strong one, just you. Let them in, even if it feels vulnerable, especially if it feels vulnerable. That's how you start to rewrite the story of who you think you need to be. Perfection isolates, authenticity connects. The more you let go of needing to have it all figured out, the more room you create for joy, for flow, for creativity, for relationships that nourish instead of drain. You start to breathe again, not just survive. Capricorn, the world doesn't need a perfect version of you. It needs a present one, a grounded one, a real one. So take the pressure off, drop the performance, trust that who you are right now is already enough. Because in the space where perfection ends, your true power begins. And when you finally believe that, you'll stop chasing approval and start living in peace. Here we are, Capricorn, at the edge of everything you've known, and the beginning of something entirely new. You've heard the call, you've felt the pull, through the breakdowns, the questions, the silent mornings, and the late-night realizations. You've been walking your way back to yourself. This is your final calling, not in a dramatic, one-shot way, but in the quiet, steady truth that won't let you go. The truth that says you're ready. You're ready to stop proving and start embodying. You're ready to stop fixing and start feeling. You're ready to stop climbing for approval and start walking on purpose. All along, the mountain was never about success. It was about remembering your strength, your softness, your soul. Nostradamus didn't see you as just another sign in the sky. He saw you as a guardian, a builder of worlds, someone who could rise from nothing and become a light for others, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. So what does life look like on the other side of this journey? It looks like boundaries without guilt, rest without shame, joy without needing to earn it, and power that comes from presence, not performance. It looks like living in sync with your soul. Let me paint the picture. You wake up, not to rush into another to-do list, but to center yourself. You drink your coffee slowly. You write what's on your heart. You walk outside, feel the earth, and remember, I belong here. You make decisions from alignment, not anxiety. You say yes because it feels right, not because you're afraid of disappointing someone. You say no with love and without explanation. You work, but not to prove anything. You create, contribute, collaborate because it lights you up, because it's what your spirit came here to do. You connect with people who see you, not just your achievements, but your essence. You laugh more, cry when you need to. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You become magnetic, not because you're trying, but because you finally come home to yourself. And here's the best part. You start leading by example. Quietly, authentically, powerfully, just by being who you are. Capricorn, this is the invitation to stop waiting for the right time, to stop waiting to feel ready. You're never going to feel 100% ready, and that's okay. You don't need to be perfect to take the first step. You just need to be willing to trust, willing to soften, willing to believe that you're already enough. And now, I want to hear from you. What part of this journey resonated with you the most? Was it the pressure to be perfect, the fire of Pluto, the quiet moments of awakening? Drop it in the comments. Share your story. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if this message stirred something in you, something deep, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to another Capricorn or anyone you know who's been carrying too much for too long. They might need this message more than you think. Hit like if this landed in your heart. Subscribe if you want more cosmic wisdom, more truth, and more reminders of who you really are. And turn on notifications, because your next awakening moment might be one video away. This isn't just content, it's a conversation, a mirror, a map back to your power. Capricorn, your time isn't coming, it's here. So take a deep breath, stand tall, and take that first step forward, not as the version of you the world expects. If this message lit something inside you, don't let it die here. Share it. Someone out there is climbing a mountain of pain, and your share might be the sign they've been waiting for. Be the spark, be the messenger, be the proof that healing is possible. But as the one your soul has been waiting for. Because when you rise in truth, everyone around you rises too.